The New Territories, located in the northwest of Hong Kong, boasts a rich history and remarkable geography. This area has been the backdrop for numerous crimes and urban legends, with each street corner seemingly harboring its own mysterious tale. Today, we'll delve into one particularly chilling case. Let's turn back the clock to February 14th, 1999. It was a Sunday and also Valentine's Day. For several days, Cheung had been deeply worried because he couldn't get in touch with his close friend, Cheung. That morning, sensing that something was wrong, Chi decided to call Cheung's younger brother and head to Cheung's home to check on him. They knocked on the door, but there was no response. At this point, Cheung's younger brother recalled that his brother had a good relationship with a neighbor, and they held spare keys for each other. He approached the neighbor to retrieve the key. However, to their surprise, they found that the lock had been changed, leaving them locked out. Growing increasingly uneasy, they decided to stop hesitating and called the police. After receiving the report, the New Territories police station quickly dispatched officers to the scene. Once briefed on the situation, they decided to forcibly enter the apartment. Upon entry, they found the main door leading to a living room flanked by a kitchen and bathroom, with 2 bedrooms on either side. The apartment was in disarray, and a foul odor filled the air. Following the source of the smell, the police discovered a large iron chest in one of the bedrooms. The chest measured 35 inches long, 24 inches wide, and 24 inches high. When the chest was opened, the top layer contained clothing. The middle layer was filled with coarse salt, and beneath it lay the dismembered body of a man. The body had been cut into 6 parts: the head, torso, 2 legs, and 2 arms. The left hand and left foot were missing. The victim's head was tightly wrapped in white cloth, his eyes wide open, with the eyeballs bulging and visible wounds around the corners of the eyes. It was a horrifying sight. The victim had died with his eyes open. The entire body was covered in coarse salt, likely in an attempt to preserve the corpse and mask the smell. Forensic examination revealed that the victim had sustained 13 stab wounds, the most significant being a large wound running from the chest to the abdomen, penetrating the lungs. The other wounds were inflicted post-mortem. Additionally, blunt force trauma was found on the victim's head and neck, likely caused by a hard object. While there was no brain damage, the injuries could have caused unconsciousness. The cause of death was determined to be excessive blood loss, with the estimated time of death being the early morning hours of February 10th. After Cheung and Cheung's younger brother identified the body, the police confirmed the victim's identity as Cheung, a 23-year-old man. Cheung was known for his loyalty and had minor ties to organized crime, often helping his friends in times of need. His relationship with his family was strained, leading him to move out on his own early in life. Despite this, he was deeply protective of his younger brother and would always step in to assist him during tough times. However, Cheung had a hot temper and could easily lose control over trivial matters. This personality trait made it difficult for him to hold down any job for long. After hearing about Cheung's death, many people gathered near his house to burn joss paper as a farewell. His friends went to the New Territories police station, demanding that the police quickly apprehend the perpetrator. The police first summoned Cheung, the friend who had reported the case, to assist with the investigation. Cheung stated that he and Cheung were the same age, 23, had much in common, and were very close friends. In the early hours of February 10th, 4 days prior, he and Cheung had been drinking and having a late-night meal at a roadside stall. Cheung, who was usually reserved and carried his burdens alone, seemed unusually downcast that night, as though something very serious was troubling him. Worried about his friend, Cheung pressed Cheung for details. After a few drinks, Cheung finally opened up. He confessed that he had noticed strange behavior from his girlfriend, Man, in recent days. She had been sneaking out dressed up, sometimes laughing at her phone. Her actions seemed suspicious, but whenever Cheung confronted her, she deflected with various excuses. He suspected that she was secretly seeing someone else. After hearing this, Cheung hesitated before telling Cheung the truth. Man had indeed been unfaithful. A few months ago, Chi-sing had often seen her behaving intimately with another man in public. Thinking that Cheung's relationship with her had already deteriorated, he hadn't mentioned it before. As Chi-sing recounted the story, Cheung's anger became increasingly evident. Realizing he should have spoken up earlier, Chi-sing felt guilty and regretful. To calm his friend down, he tried to soften the blow, suggesting that the man could be a distant relative. Cheung, however, could no longer contain himself. He suddenly stood up, saying he needed to go home to handle some matters and would return shortly, asking Chi-sing to wait for him. Minutes turned into an hour as Chi-sing sat alone at the roadside stall, but Cheung never came back. Sensing something was wrong, Chi-sing went to Cheung's apartment to check on him. Standing before Unit 2936 in Sunyuet House, Tai Hing Village, he felt a growing sense of unease. The first time he knocked, Yu Po-man answered from inside but didn't open the door. He vaguely heard a hoarse voice, which sounded like Cheung saying, "Don't hit," before loud music suddenly started playing, drowning out any further sounds. Knocking again, Chi-sing called out that he wanted to take Cheung out for drinks, but Po-man still refused to open the door and yelled at him to leave. Refusing to leave, Chi-sing felt sure Cheung was inside. After waiting outside for a while, he knocked a third time and said his phone battery was dead and he needed to come in to charge it. Shortly after, Po-man opened the door, threw a power bank at him, and slammed the door shut. Despite her quick movements, Chi-sing caught a glimpse inside the apartment. He saw a strange woman wearing glasses, likely around Po-man's age. After that, no matter how persistently Chi-sing knocked on the door, there was no response. He knocked a total of 7 times, but still saw no sign of Cheung. Eventually, he gave up and went home, thinking that if the couple was arguing, it was best to let them resolve it on their own without his interference. Little did he know that the next time he would see Cheung, it would be as a lifeless body. Based on Chi-sing's testimony, the police immediately suspected that Po-man was involved in Cheung's death, making her the primary suspect. Inside the apartment, however, they found no trace of Po-man or her daughter. Despite inquiries with neighbors, relatives, and friends, no one knew where they had gone. Following leads from Chi-sing, the police identified the glasses-wearing woman who had been in the apartment with Po-man on the day of the crime, but she provided no new information. She told the police she hadn't seen Cheung that day, claiming she had only been at the apartment briefly before leaving. That evening, the police issued a warrant for Po-man's arrest and intensified their search for Cheung's missing left hand and foot. On February 17th in Waterloo, 18 miles from the New Territories, a man named Lau Quan-hwa came forward at a police station, claiming to be Po-man's ex-boyfriend. He said that after seeing the police's wanted notice, he was in disbelief until Po-man called him and confessed to the crime. During the call, Quan-hwa urged her to turn herself in, even offering to accompany her, but she firmly refused and hung up. Quan-hwa candidly explained that his reason for coming forward was to avoid being investigated and mistakenly implicated as an accomplice. He thought it was better to cooperate voluntarily. According to Quan-hwa, he met Po-man in January the previous year when she was selling candy at a flea market in Victoria Park. Attracted by her youthful beauty, he approached her and asked for her contact information. They began dating, and on their first date, they officially became a couple. At the time, Quan-hwa didn't know that Po-man already had a boyfriend and a child. He treated her well, always buying her thoughtful gifts on holidays. However, after a few months, Po-man abruptly ended the relationship without explanation, leaving Quan-hwa heartbroken and unsatisfied. Despite the breakup, the two remained in touch and maintained a friendship. While Po-man's feelings toward Quan-hwa were unclear, his intentions were straightforward. He wanted to get back together with her. On the morning of February 10th at 7 a.m., Po-man called Quan-hwa and asked for his help, saying that a classmate of hers needed assistance moving some items. Quan-hwa readily agreed. At 9 a.m., as instructed, he arrived punctually at Po-man's home near Tai Hing Village in the New Territories. After waiting a short while, Po-man and her classmate brought out a 4-foot wooden ladder and 2 buckets, placing them in the trunk of his car. Po-man then asked him to drive to Yuen Long. Upon arrival, the two unloaded the items and carried them away while Quan Hua waited in the car. 15 minutes later, they returned and told him, "Everything is done." The three of them then went to have lunch at a restaurant. On the way back, Po Man mentioned that her classmate had accidentally broken a kitchen knife while cutting chicken at a friend's house. She asked Quan Hua to help her buy a new knife as a replacement and to get a pair of scissors as well. Now, with the case exposed, Quan Hua realized in shock that the knife and scissors he had purchased might have been used as tools to dismember the body. Po Man might have killed her boyfriend, and her confession over the phone only confirmed his suspicions. Quan Hua fell into a state of extreme panic. The police immediately devised a plan for Quan Hua to contact Po Man, lure her out to meet, and then arrest her. As it turned out, the classmate Quan Hua mentioned was none other than the mysterious woman Chi Sing had seen at the crime scene. This classmate told the police that Po Man had asked her for help moving some items that day. She hadn't thought much of it and agreed, but she claimed she didn't know what the items were for and was now unable to contact Po Man. The police pinned their hopes on Quan Hua. However, Po Man was very cautious. Despite Quan Hua's attempts to persuade her, she refused to meet with him. Fortunately, she was still willing to stay in touch over the phone. With Quan Hua's cooperation, the police successfully arrested Po Man 12 days after the crime, on February 22nd, at an apartment on Shanghai Street, Mongkok. Her 4-year-old daughter was taken into protective custody. After her arrest, Po Man did not attempt to hide her actions and provided a full confession of the crime. Born in 1980, Po Man had a younger sister. In 1994, at the age of 14, she attended New Territories Catholic Secondary School, where she excelled academically and was soft-spoken. She held several leadership positions at school, such as cheerleading captain and president of the Chinese club. Po Man, an introverted yet strikingly attractive girl, drew the admiration of many. During her school years, she was even invited to appear in several commercials. For instance, a popular shampoo brand at the time had once featured her. In 1994, one day, she visited a karaoke bar where a classmate worked part-time. Coincidentally, Cheung, who was 18 at the time, also worked there. The moment Cheung saw Po Man, he was captivated by her unique, pure demeanor and fell for her at first sight. He obtained her phone number through their mutual classmate, and the two began to stay in touch. Po Man often visited Cheung's home with friends, maintaining a friendly relationship. One day, faced with the girl he had been infatuated with for so long, Cheung lost control of his emotions. Taking advantage of a moment when no one else was around, he assaulted Po Man. Afterward, he expressed regret, apologized to her, and claimed that alcohol had clouded his judgment, leading to the incident. He assured her that he was willing to take full responsibility for his actions. Po Man didn't believe Cheung's apology, but fearing he might use the incident to threaten her, she pretended nothing had happened and said, "I won't report it to the police." Overjoyed, Cheung began treating Po Man even better. Touched by his seemingly genuine feelings, Po Man gradually developed feelings for him, and the two began a romantic relationship. By the end of 1994, while still in 10th grade, Po Man unexpectedly became pregnant. As she was still very young, raising a child posed an enormous challenge. They both knew that if people found out the baby was Cheung's, he might face legal consequences. After discussing it, they decided to keep the pregnancy a secret and planned for an abortion. However, after an examination, the doctor deemed Po Man too underweight and physically weak, warning that an abortion could endanger her life. Reluctantly, they decided to keep the baby. Po Man continued attending high school while pregnant. Thanks to her petite frame, she could conceal her growing belly by wearing loose clothing. When anyone expressed suspicion, she would dismiss it as simply gaining weight from eating too much. Even up until the delivery, her friends, classmates, and even her family, who lived with her, never realized she was pregnant. By May 1995, as her due date approached, Po Man didn't seek help from anyone or visit a doctor. Instead, she gave birth to a baby girl by herself in the bathroom at Cheung's home. To avoid anyone discovering that the child was related to Cheung, she gave the baby her own last name and named her Yu Young. Unlike Po Man's joy, Cheung Wai Man saw the baby's arrival as a burden and insisted that she abandon the child at the entrance of a hospital. Po Man adamantly refused, and after much pleading, Cheung reluctantly agreed to take care of the baby. She left the baby at Cheung's home and would visit daily after school to care for her daughter, returning to her own home at night. This became their routine. Still a high school student without income, Po Man struggled with the costs of raising a child, especially since Cheung's work was unstable. To solve this, Po Man came up with a plan. She told her family that she wanted to rent a place outside the home to focus on her studies. Her family believed her and began giving her 1,000 Hong Kong dollars per month as an allowance. With this, Po Man moved in with Cheung. The steady income made Cheung lazy, and he eventually quit his part-time job altogether. Despite the difficulties, Po Man refused to give up her education. She juggled studying and caring for her daughter, successfully completing her pre-university program and achieving good results in her college entrance exams. However, after much thought, she decided to give up the opportunity to attend college and stayed at Cheung's home to take care of her daughter, becoming a housewife. Of course, she kept this decision from her family and lied that she had been accepted into college and still needed to rent a place. Her family didn't question her and continued sending her a monthly allowance. By 1996 and 1997, Po Man had given birth to 2 more children. However, with their meager income, she couldn't afford to raise them. As a result, she abandoned both children, one at a nearby subway station and the other at the entrance of a hospital in the New Territories. Despite sacrificing so much for Cheung, Po Man didn't find the happiness she had hoped for. Not only did she live in poverty, but she also had to endure Cheung's volatile temper. He frequently beat her, leaving her body covered in bruises. Over time, her love for him turned into deep resentment. She often thought that if not for Cheung, she could have gone to college, possibly become a star, and pursued her dreams. These thoughts gradually led her to consider leaving Cheung. In January 1998, while shopping at a market, she met Quan Hua, a painter. His gentle nature was a stark contrast to her abusive boyfriend, and for the first time, she felt cared for and loved. She quickly fell for him. Hiding the fact that she had a boyfriend and children, she began a relationship with Quan Hua. He treated her exceptionally well, making her both happy and anxious. She knew that if Cheung discovered her affair, he would undoubtedly beat her. Fearing the consequences, she ended the relationship after only a few months. In April that same year, while buying street food with her younger sister, Po Man encountered a tall, dark-skinned man who immediately caught her attention. Boldly, she approached him and asked for his contact information. The man turned out to be a firefighter. Captivated by Po Man's youthful beauty, he quickly fell for her, unaware of her past. The two soon entered into a romantic relationship. Unlike before, Po Man didn't hide this relationship and openly dated him in shopping malls. After 6 months of dating, by November 1998, Cheung noticed her frequent absences and became suspicious. Although he repeatedly questioned her, she evaded his inquiries with excuses. Cheung, known for his distrustful nature, didn't give up. He demanded that Po Man report her whereabouts every time she went out and occasionally followed her secretly. However, Po Man was careful to cover her tracks, and Cheung had yet to catch her in the act. In the early hours of February 10, 1999, Cheung, troubled by his suspicions for a long time, finally confided in his friend, Chi Sing. Unbeknownst to him, Chi Sing had already witnessed the affair firsthand. After confirming his doubts, Cheung, filled with rage, returned home to confront Po Man directly. What followed was the tragic series of events. According to Yu Po Man's testimony, in the early hours of February 10th, Cheung returned home and unleashed a torrent of verbal abuse, venting all his frustrations from the past days. He also began to physically assault her. In an act of self-defense, she grabbed an iron hammer and a stool nearby to fight back. During the altercation, she picked up a kitchen knife to threaten Cheung, but accidentally injured him. Losing control, Cheung collapsed in a pool of blood. Overwhelmed by the memory of the abuse she had suffered and her ruined future, Po-man continued attacking Cheung with the stool, channeling all her anger and resentment toward him. At that moment, Chi-sing arrived to check on the situation and knocked on the door. In her panic, Po-man refused to let him in. Worried that he might hear Cheung's cries, she dragged Cheung into the bathroom and turned on loud music to muffle the noise. Time passed, and Cheung succumbed to blood loss. Meanwhile, 4-year-old Yu Young witnessed the entire scene through the crack of the bathroom door and began crying in fear. To prevent her daughter from seeing the traumatic sight again, Po-man decided she needed to handle the body. She found an iron chest in the house typically used for storing tools like hammers and saws. Emptying its contents, she realized the chest was too small to fit Cheung's body and decided to dismember him. However, the kitchen knife she had was not sharp enough, and her small frame made the task extremely difficult. After hours of slow progress, she was exhausted. Covering the body with a cloth, she left it and went to bed. The next morning, Po-man took her daughter out for breakfast at a tea shop. She then called her ex-boyfriend, Kwan-wha, asking for help to move some items. Using a flimsy excuse, she also asked him to buy a new kitchen knife and a pair of scissors. Upon returning home, she resumed dismembering the body. The new tools were much sharper, allowing her to cut the body into 6 parts and fit them into the iron chest. However, the space was still tight, so she removed the left hand and left foot. She sprinkled coarse salt over the body parts in the chest to mask the odor, then covered them with clothes and shoes. The left hand and foot were discarded in a nearby garbage bin. Thinking she had successfully hidden the evidence, Po-man believed the ordeal was over. However, the crime was quickly uncovered. Although Kwan-wha had unknowingly purchased the tools used in the dismemberment, he was unaware of their intended purpose. Once he learned the truth, he voluntarily reported the matter to the police and was not prosecuted. Similarly, the classmate, identified as C, was not found to have any direct involvement in the crime and was also not charged. A year after the crime, on February 3, 2000, the trial took place at Hong Kong's High Court. The defendant, Po-man, was charged with murder and obstructing the lawful burial of a body. In court, Po-man maintained that she had killed Cheung unintentionally in self-defense and had dismembered his body out of fear, not as part of a premeditated murder. The jury, consisting of 5 women and 2 men, deliberated for 7 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict. The court found Po-man not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison for manslaughter and 3 years for obstructing the lawful burial of a body, with the sentences combined for a total of 12 years. The crime, occurring on Valentine's Day and involving a salted corpse, was gruesome and bizarre, captivating the media and sparking widespread discussion and speculation. Some believe that Po-man couldn't have dismembered the body alone. Her small stature made it seem implausible that she could have overpowered and dragged Cheung, a large man, without assistance. Many suspected that C might have helped her. However, Po-man denied C's direct involvement in the crime. Whether the latter and 2 buckets transported by Po-man and C were connected to the crime remains unclear, as public information did not disclose further details. Still, C's presence at the crime scene raised suspicions among the public. Some people also found Chi-sing's actions suspicious. On the day of the crime, he clearly heard Cheung's voice, but chose not to call the police. Chi-sing explained that he feared calling the police would expose the existence of Cheung's 4-year-old daughter, which could lead to Cheung being imprisoned. While his explanation might be understandable to a certain extent, it appeared weak when weighed against moral standards. Additionally, some speculated that such a loud argument late at night would have likely disturbed the neighbors, yet no neighbors reported hearing anything that day. This led to suspicions that the apartment might not have been the initial crime scene. Of course, all of this remains conjecture with no concrete evidence. Yu Po-man was released from prison in 2009. She changed her name and disappeared from public view. However, the story did not end there. Her daughter, Yu Young, after losing her father and with her mother imprisoned, was placed in an orphanage and later adopted by a family. Unfortunately, she didn't feel warmth or connection in her new home. The horrifying memories of her parents' violent conflict on the day of the crime haunted her for years. She became withdrawn, introverted, and avoided interacting with others. Despite inheriting Po Man's intelligence and initially excelling in school, Yu Young's attitude changed drastically when she entered adolescence at 15. She lost interest in studying, dropped out of school, and left her adoptive parents' home. She fell in with a bad crowd, became addicted to drugs, and became involved in drug trafficking. At 19, she was arrested by the police. In court, Yu Young admitted that her family circumstances were no excuse for her crimes. She stated, "Thank you for arresting me so I can stop dealing these things." Her adoptive mother, who was present in court, declared, "Regardless of what people think, I will continue to take care of Yu Young." Despite her intentions, Yu Young followed in her mother's footsteps and was sentenced to 5 years and 8 months in prison at the age of 19. Yu Young's story also stirred public discussion. A filmmaker adapted the more than 25-year-long tale of the mother and daughter into a movie, Elisa's Day, in 2021. The film revisited the old case, prompting society to reflect on the challenges faced by young people. The love and life of Po Man, from an innocent young girl to a prisoner behind bars, was a heavy and arduous journey. This story serves as a poignant reminder of how one decision can alter the course of an entire life. The intertwined stories of Po Man and Yu Young leave behind lingering questions. Their tragic fates form a sorrowful cycle, evoking both pity and reflection. Was it their circumstances that drove them, or were their fates the inevitable consequence of poor choices? Po Man, a young woman with a promising future, ultimately buried her happiness with impulsive and immature decisions. Hurt and cornered, she chose vengeance instead of seeking help. That cruel act not only took another's life, but also destroyed her own and her daughter's futures. Today's video concludes here. See you in the next one. Goodbye.